Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm a 12-year-old literacy advocate, podcast host, Giving Tuesday Spark leader, and book lover, and I just forgot to say my name. My name is E-Train. Today's interview is an incredibly exciting and special one. I have the honor of talking with three-time Newbery Honoree, literacy hero, and an incredible human being. She's the voice behind over 20 middle grade stories that include and celebrate diversity and inclusivity in everything from gorgeous picture books to heartfelt middle grade novels to even an amazing graphic novel. The pointing is hard because it's weird on Zoom. So I'm talking about the wonderful author Christina Soontornvat. And as we will find out in our talk, Christina may be an award-winning writing extraordinaire now, but she didn't start out writing books. She began her adult life studying and working in the science field. That is not something we hear every day when talking to authors especially. And so it's always so much fun, a great talking point when authors have unique backstories, and I'm excited to help discover and share more about my incredible guest. So without further ado, let's all welcome Christina to E-Train Talks.
Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, what an introduction. Thank you, E-Train.
Yeah,
I would like for you to introduce me everywhere I go, please.
Aw. Well, I've been so excited for this interview ever since we had it scheduled, and I just love all of these books that I have right here of yours, and I'm definitely going to get some more after this interview.
Thank you. That means so
So,
much to me.
my first question for you is, as a member of the AAPI writing community, you write beautiful, diverse stories that include authentic characters. But my question is, how do you feel about writers who aren't necessarily members of the AAPI community, or really who aren't a part of any of the community that are writing about characters that they may not necessarily share the same experiences with?
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. This is such a great question, and it's a huge question that writers are asking and talking about amongst themselves, not just people who write for children, but like all writers are asking, what story should I tell? Can I tell this one? Can I tell that one? And
Right.
so, all the characters in my books are almost always kids that are like me. I
Mhm.
mean, especially the tryout is like my memoir. It's my
Yeah.
story. And I write like that because I think that I didn't grow up with stories, I didn't grow up with books with Asian American characters. And I just feel this enormous like outpouring of creative energy to want to tell those stories because that's what's important to me. I do think that writers can write well about people who are not like them, but I think it's really hard. I think that you have to do a ton of research. You have to have so much knowledge, so much empathy that, like, for me, if I was going to write a story about like a kid who grew up in Louisiana, in New Orleans, or something like that, and they, were impacted by Hurricane Katrina, I really don't think I could write that. Like, it would just take so much work. So
Mhm.
I feel like the writers who have done that work can do it well. So, it's a tricky question. And I've read a lot of books that haven't done it well. And so I think whenever I see a writer writing about Asian American Pacific Islander characters, and if they're not Asian American themselves, I'm always a little bit nervous because
Right.
I don't know how it's going to go. But I think it's a question we're going to keep talking about, and we're going to
Mhm.
keep going through because we can't always write about people who are exactly 100% like
Mhm.
us. We're never going to be doing that all the time. So my short, long answer is I don't know. We're still
Yeah.
working on it.
Yeah. And it's really tough because you want authentic characters, but you also want those characters to be represented more in middle grade. So it's kind of a tough balance.
Yeah, it totally is. And there's also a lot of, I think, like I said, authors have responsibility to do their research and
Mhm.
try to come from the best place possible. But then I also think, publishers have a responsibility too. There's so much that's involved in getting a book out there. It's not just writing it, it's what gets acquired and how books get marketed, what gets put in the very front
Yeah,
of the bookstore when you walk in, right? And so they have a responsibility too to do support authentic stories.
definitely. And my next question for you is kind of diving into one of your books. So, one of your most profound works of nonfiction is All 13, which shares a story of the wild boars. No, not the animals. There's 12 kids, 12 members of a soccer team, and 12 kids who were tragically trapped in a flooded cave in Thailand for over a month. In All 13, you dive deep into each of the kids' tales. So, how did you go about researching the book? Did you interview primary sources, or was it based on information through research alone?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, talk about like wanting to tell an authentic story. I had no plans to write all 13. I had never written nonfiction before,
Mhm.
but my family is Thai. My dad's family is, almost entirely lives in Thailand. And we were actually in Thailand when the rescue was taking place.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we were just there on vacation and we were just like watching it on television, just unfolding this incredible rescue. So I just felt really strongly like, oh, there's so much that
Mhm.
I want to talk about here about Thai people and culture and what this means and why this is important. And so really dove into it without knowing what I was doing. And I knew I would have to go to Thailand and interview people because there's so much especially when at the time when I was writing the book, there was so much about the story that was not in the news, that was
Yeah,
not covered. So if I was going to figure it out, I couldn't just like read about it online or like pick up a book and read about it. So I knew I had to go there and interview people. So I did that. I hopped on a plane and my dad met me in that area in far northern Thailand because I don't speak fluent Thai and my dad does. So
yeah.
he was my translator. And when I landed, I had one interview set up and that was it. I was like, I don't even know who is going to talk to me. I don't know. But I was so lucky that the place where the rescue happened was a small town. And so
Oh,
everyone knew everybody else. And so interviewing one person, he was like, you got to meet my friend because he was involved in the rescue too. So he would take me to go meet his friend and I would interview that person, and then they would introduce me to this person. Somebody knew the divers, so I got to talk to the divers, and then just through all of this eventually got to talk to the boys
oh,
also and to the
wow.
coach. Yeah, so it was really just this incredible experience of diving in and just going for it and just relying on the kindness of people to set me up so that I could talk to everybody that I did. It was I have never had an experience like that. I don't think I ever will again. It's amazing.
Well, it's really hard to write compelling stories that are nonfiction, and I feel like you did a really good job of that. And I mean, a lot of kids are hesitant to read nonfiction because there's not a lot of the times a story there to kind of sink deep into because books are meant to be an escape. But you did a great job of having truth, but also kind of making it a story that all readers would want to read.
Ah, thank you so much. I mean, I feel like that's because of all the people I talked to that
Mhm.
their stories was impacting me so much. Like I felt like, okay, I that's how I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it about these people and like so you really connect to the nonfiction through these human beings. So,
Absolutely.
yay.
So my next question is about your graphic memoir, The Tryout. It was your first graphic memoir. Well, I mean, it's a graphic memoir, so like there's not too many graphic memoirs that you would be able to write about yourself. So it's your first graphic memoir in the middle grade space. I don't know why I'm saying that. You might write another graphic memoir in the middle grade space in the future. I don't know. Uh,
Yeah, no, first graphic novel, first memoir,
yeah,
first a lot of things. Yeah.
yeah. The Tryout is certainly a book of firsts, not just in your writing world, but also in your world as a teenager. So, what emotions went through your head whilst writing the book? Because the book features a bit of the bullying that you experienced, and it can be really hard to tell your truth. Like, I've experienced a lot of bullying at school, and it's just hard to tell my mom. But you were able to channel what you experienced into a beautiful book. And so, how did you find the strength to write your truth and the true truth, I guess?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, such a great question. I totally feel you about like it's hard to tell your mom. I never told my mom about what was happening to me in middle school. Part of that was that at that time, I was in middle school like 30 years ago. So at that time, there was just this sort of attitude around bullying of like, oh, that's just part of growing up. Kids will be
Yeah.
kids, and
Mhm.
like, it makes you tough, toughen up. And especially because a lot of the bullying that I went through was about race
Mm.
and racism. And there was, I think, just people didn't want to talk about that.
Right.
People wanted to be like, it doesn't exist. We're past all that.
Yeah.
And so I think of a huge part of being able to tell the truth was that I didn't start trying until I was 40. So there's all this space, that I had to
Yeah.
think about it and process it. And I think it is hard when it's happening to you in the moment. Like, I don't think I could have possibly written about it in that moment. Um, but actually, the thing that I had to do, um, I had to really accept that things that grown-ups might have said, like, that's no big deal. I had to remember what it was like to be your age or to be Christina's age in the book. And that no, it was a huge deal. It was like
Yeah.
everything. It's like my whole world was this one, moment, this one class where this boy would pick on me or something. Like
Mhm.
that was, it was all consuming for me at that time. So just to step back there and to remember what it was like. And it helps that I have two daughters that are around middle school age now.
Yeah.
So I'm seeing them go through all of these things and just, how impactful one thing that someone says to them can be for them. So that I think all of that really helped, but not easy.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to think about because you were in middle school such a long time ago. I don't want to make you feel old. That probably made you feel old.
No, it's okay.
Like my mom always tells me, write everything that's going on in like a Google Doc or something, but it can be really hard. And it's because it feels like your entire world, no matter what anybody else says, like it's just middle school, it's gonna end like when you get to high school. But like I'm in middle school right now, and I'm not in high school right now. It's just everything. It takes over your head, kind of.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally agree with you. And your mom is so smart and so wise. She didn't tell me to say that.
Yeah.
But like yeah, I think writing it down, if you're only writing it for you, that can help. I think I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have kept a journal just to
Mhm.
like get all that stuff out for one
True.
thing,
Yeah.
but also E-Train one day you might want to write about your experiences and you were going to wish you had a journal to go back and read.
Oh, yeah. Maybe I'll get a journal after this interview.
Yeah. Yeah, not like you have a lot of extra time, but
Yeah. Yeah, like something to keep on my bucket list.
yeah, exactly.
So, kind of shifting away from your books, so we'll definitely get back to that. I was really surprised to discover that your background is actually in the sciences. So you have a Bachelor of Science degree in mechanical engineering and a master's in science education. So, I even read that you even spent a decade working in a science museum. Now, that must have been a lot of fun. So,
Oh my
will you share a bit about your life as a not necessarily a scientist, rather somebody who was in the field of sciences, though I guess you could call that a scientist, as well as
yeah.
what prompted you to turn your focus from a science field to pursuing a career in writing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the reason I sort of started off wanting to be in the sciences is because even though I loved reading, I mean, I'm looking at your bookshelf and I'm like, there's some books that I would have had, and like my room would have been like that. I loved writing stories and coming up with stories, and I was always like making up plays and things like that. But I never met an author. I
Mm,
never, there was nothing that would have shown me that it was a job you could have. It was like, totally opaque. You might have said it seemed more. I had more of an idea of what you needed to do to be an astronaut than to be an author, you know? So
Yeah.
like I didn't even think about it as a job. And I always liked science. I've always liked, reading lots of different things and learning different things. So it just sort of seemed like a fit. And then after I got out of college, I was working at like an engineering firm, like doing actual real science work. And I was like, I don't really like this so much. Um, so I got a job in a science museum because I've always loved kids, being around kids and working with them in some way. So it felt like, okay, I can work with kids and I can kind of tell stories about science. That was really what my job was like we would build these exhibits. So we would take some scientific topic like nanotechnology and tell a story about it so that
Yeah.
you could learn about it with your family. And it was so fun. It was like the most fun job. But it was while I was working at that museum, I had a meeting with a chemistry professor.
Mhm.
And he walked in, and we were going to talk about like doing a chemistry exhibit. And he brought a book with him in his stack of papers, and it was like a paperback copy, and it was a book called Zach Proton, the Adventures of Zach Proton, and the guy's name was on the book, and he had
Oh,
written that book, and I just kept staring at it, and I was like, did you write that book? And he told me like, yeah, I'm a chemistry professor and I also write children's books, and my mind just like exploded. And so he kind of got me like going. He told me about this group in Austin, Texas, where I live, where everybody meets and you share stories and you try to help each other get published. And I started going to that group, and I just all of this like many years of wanting to tell stories and not really knowing how to do it, that was all it took to get me to be able to try to get published. And it took years and years, it took a long time, but that was like the spark of it, was meeting someone.
yeah, that's an awesome story. And I kind of, before I started actually talking to authors, it just seems like authors who write stories, they're just so distant. They're like behind a computer. They're not real. They're like AI. But then when you get to meet them and like understand that they are people with personalities and stories to tell, it can really like inspire you and yeah, give you a spark, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, that's why what you do here is so important, because you're this gateway to
Yeah,
other people seeing authors, and that they're real ordinary people, like so ordinary, so boring, like
yeah, like
anybody can do
me.
it.
And yeah, like understanding that people are ordinary, like can kind of bring them down to earth and be like, they're people too. I can do
Exactly.
that.
Exactly. Yes. Totally.
So, for all the teachers and librarians who are listening to this or watching, who are hoping to find some way to add your excellent stories to their school curriculum, do you have any teaching questions or guides or kits for educators to use for their students?
Yeah, I do. On my website, soontornvat.com, usually many of the books I have, the publisher works with a teacher or works with like a retired
Cool.
librarian to come up with like teaching guides, and yeah, book club questions, things like that. And I'm always so grateful for that, because I remember when I was in school, like read aloud time was my number one favorite thing. And like
Yeah.
novel study, always, I loved that more than anything else. So the thought that educators are doing that in their classroom with my books is just like, I really can't believe it.
Yeah, and I've seen pictures on social media of a lot of book clubs reading your new graphic novel series. And
Yeah.
would you mind telling us about that?
Oh yeah, about the series
Yeah.
Legends of Lotus Island.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so here, let me see. If I
I
look
know,
up
it's kind of on the spot, so you're gonna,
I've got it.
yeah.
Yeah, this is a fantasy series, and it's actually illustrated. So it's not
Ooh.
graphic novel, it's there's illustrations every like 12 pages or something like that. And it's illustrated by Kevin Hong, and it's about kids who train to transform into fantastical creatures that protect the natural world. So there's definitely like an environmental theme there. And the Legends of Lotus Island, the main character, her name is Plum. And so she travels from her little island where she lives. The whole series takes place in this island world. Like everyone lives on little different islands.
Oh.
And she travels to Lotus Island to
Mhm.
try to go to this academy where she's trying to learn how to do this. And in the first book, she's having a lot of trouble. So she has to meet new friends. She makes some enemies, and she's all like, trying to figure out exactly who
Yeah.
she is and where she fits. So there's going to be 4 books. There's 2 that are out now, and I just turned in the 4th book, and I'm just waiting because every time I turn in a book, my editor, she'll come back with this
Yeah.
letter of all the things I have to fix and like the ways to make it better. So I should be getting that any moment.
You were just waiting, and then all the editing has to start.
That's right. I
Yeah.
know in some ways I kind of dread it because I'm like, oh, I know there's going to be a lot of work. But in some
Yeah.
ways I'm like excited
Mhm.
because the editor, like, they really do help you so much. Like having somebody else read it and tell you how to make it better that's so great. Like
Yeah.
rather than just you have to figure it out by yourself.
And you also mentioned the cover of the all the covers are just so like, I mean, words can't describe how good they are. I saw the cover reveal of the 3rd book on your Twitter. It's just
Yes,
like,
the
wow.
cover is that our artist is amazing. This is the 2nd book.
Yeah.
So, Kevin just, oh my gosh, I don't know how I got so lucky to get to work with him. He really like goes all out, and I don't send him any notes for like what something should look like. Like I didn't tell him like, oh, Plum needs to look like this with these clothes and there's this
Yeah.
tree, it looks exactly like this. I just write the story and he comes up with all of that. It's amazing. It's like magic, really.
Yeah, like it's like writing and art are both like magic, and they're kind of intertwining into beautiful stories.
Yeah, it's I'm so grateful for the artists I get to work with. And the tryout is getting a sequel. Oh, I can show you. So our talk about also an incredible artist. Our artist Joanna
Oh,
she's
wow.
working on the inks, the black and white drawings for the 2nd book. It's called The Squad, and it's coming out next year. And so this is also what I'm doing as I'm waiting for the notes on Legends of Lotus Island. I'm going through her sketches and making little notes for her for the final art. So that's exciting times.
Yeah. And do you find that writing for graphic novels is tougher than writing for maybe middle grade novels that like prose?
Yeah, it's so different. I really had to like study it and learn how to do it. It's much more like writing a script for a
Yeah.
movie. Not that I've ever done that, but that's what I studied to
Yeah.
try to learn how to do this. Because every panel in the book is sort of like a scene, so you kind of have to tell the artist what's going on here, and you write the dialogue, and then the artist like lays it out as if they're the director shooting the movie. And yeah, it's really really different. And I also think that writing a memoir, it was hard to learn how to write a
Yeah.
memoir. Um, it's a very strange thing when you can't just make up what happens. Like you really have to
Yeah.
tap into the things that happen to you to write the story. So it's challenging, but I kind of like that.
Yeah.
That's sort of why I write so many different things is I really like to feel like I'm kind of on my toes and I'm not just like, oh, I know how to do this. This is easy. Because
Yeah.
that's boring.
Mhm. And I once tried to write a little bit about what's going on in my life, and it just kind of feels a little like there's this little part of my brain in the back of my head that's like, you're so narcissistic, E-Train, writing about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of, it is.
Yeah.
But
But it's
I mean,
important.
yeah, it is important. And you have to, that's one of those voices you have to shut off.
Yeah.
And the way that I shut it off is that I thought anytime I started to feel like that, I was like, well, maybe someone else who's reading this book, they felt the same way. And if I tell my story, they're going to know they're not alone.
Right.
So that's a way to get it, tell that voice to shush.
Yeah. Be quiet.
That's right. I have to do that with, there's a lot of voices in my head that I have to tell to shush. You're kind
Yeah.
of a little bit crazy when you're an author. You have a lot of voices in your head.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all a little crazy
Yeah.
sometimes. So, moving back to your books, The Last Mapmaker, which is up here, it actually won the Newbery Honor in 2023. I got the book before it won the Newbery Honor, so I don't have the like amazing patch on it. But
I could send you one.
oh, that would be
Okay,
amazing.
yeah, that's one cool thing is when you get that, they send you like a little packet of stickers.
Oh,
So I
cool.
can send you one. You can put it on there. You can
Yeah.
feel like the committee, like you're the committee
Yeah.
member.
So, The Last Mapmaker is about a young, pretty mischievous girl who's also the assistant to one of the most renowned map makers in the world. So, she herself is full of secrets, but on her new expedition, she isn't the only person who has these hidden truths inside of her. So, I feel like a lot of your books, for instance, we have right here A Wish in the Dark. You can't really see it because the tryout's kind of blocking it. But there's secrets involved in that, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But also in The Last Mapmaker, everybody has secrets. Do you think that is it harder to add secrets to many characters' points of views, I guess, not just your protagonist, because there's all these little hints and details that you have to add to make every story like authentic. Is that any like more difficult for you than writing, say, a graphic memoir about yourself?
Yeah, you know what? I took this writing class one time from the author Donna Gephardt.
Oh
She's
yeah.
this incredible middle grade author who is also the nicest person in the world. And in that class, her advice was when you're coming up with a character, think about this, you think about, okay, what do they want? What are their goals? What's their history? You're trying to build out this real person. And she said, think about what are they hiding from the world, because we're all hiding something. We all, none of us is a complete open book. And what are they hiding from themselves also? Like, what do they not want to admit to themselves? And I think we all have something about that, like that we're carrying around. And that just really, like, every time I write a book, I think about that. And I think, some people's secrets are bigger and heavier and weigh them down more than other people. But when I was writing The Last Mapmaker, I knew that this thought of like secrets and everyone is like not exactly who they say was going to be a big theme in the book,
Yeah.
because I knew they were going to be on a ship. And I
Mm.
was just like, that is just like a pressure cooker, like you're trapped on this
Yeah.
ship. It's like Survivor, you're on this island with people. Nobody can get off. No, no, no. It's you're in this really intense situation. And then if everyone is keeping a secret from everybody else, oh, that's going to be like such great drama.
Mm.
And this character, Sai, the girl, is going to have to navigate all of this and figure out how is she going to let her own secrets out too.
Right.
So it just felt like that was going to be a huge part of the book, and that part was fun. It was
Yeah.
fun to write.
Many characters all on one boat. They all have something to hide. Tune in to MTV, The Last Mapmaker reality TV show.
Yes, oh my gosh, I love it. Call my film agent. Let's
Yeah.
make it happen.
Yeah, let's make it happen. So, I guess a follow-up question to this could be, are you an avid map user because you had to write, The Last Mapmaker, or do you use GPS when you go everywhere?
Oh my gosh, I just use GPS now, and it's so funny because like I was talking with my friend the other day about when we were in high school, nobody had phones. I mean, they were
Right.
like the giant brick, phones. And I lived in a kind of a small town, and so everybody lived like out in the country and all these places. And I was talking to my friend, I was like, how did we know where to go? How did did you ever use a map? She was like, I don't think so. I think we were just lost a lot of the time. So, because now with GPS, like I just plug it in and I just follow
Yeah.
what it says. But yeah, I love maps when I was a kid. I loved looking at them. And like I would, we had a globe in my
Oh,
house, just
yeah.
like a cheap globe, and I would just look at it. And I think there's something about a map, about a globe, that it just makes you want to come up with stories. It's just like sparks so many ideas in your mind and all the names.
Right.
So that is a big part of why I wrote the book, was because it's just something that was cool that I was
Yeah.
into when I was young. Yeah.
We I remember my dad and I we used to play like the globe game where we spun the globe and we had our finger like the globe was just spinning and then whatever country we'd land on, we would like tell a story. That would be pretty cool to start doing again. For writing, like seriously, I guess.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I've done that too. Yeah. And I would always be like, and stop. And it'd be like in the
Yeah.
middle of the Pacific Ocean. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. I gotta spin again now.
Yeah.
So the next question for you is about book banning. So I know that you're very vocal about your opinion on book banning, and it's a really big topic right now. It's incredibly sad how big of a topic it is. There's just mass book banning everywhere across the United States. There's like neo-Nazi organizations, like there's Moms for Liberty. I also saw this article the other day, like 11 people are responsible for 60% of book challenges in the United States.
Yes.
Have any of your own diverse stories have been challenged or banned, and what's kind of your stance on it?
Yeah, I don't know if any of my books have been outright banned. I do know that they've been, like I have been disinvited from going to a school,
Right. Yeah.
to talk to a school because of like the things that I write about and my just actually it was about like where I live, because I live in a very liberal place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's so terrible. It's affecting authors everywhere. It's most of all, I just hate that it's affecting kids, and that, in Texas where I live, there's a school district not far from me that the book banners are so vocal and just putting so much pressure on them that they decided not to buy any books this year for
Oh my
they
God.
just wanted to avoid the trouble. And so their kids in their district aren't getting any new books. So no new Dog Man, no new Christina Soontornvat books. No,
Yeah.
I mean, there's if anything new comes out, they can't have it. And it's so terrible. And I think at the root of it is that people in power they're trying to exert more power. And I think it's really telling that the way that they're doing it, they're pouring so much resources, so much time. Like you said, 11 people responsible for 60% of the book bans. How much time must they spend? I mean, they must treat
Right.
it like a full-time job trying to ban books, right?
Mhm.
And it's because they know how powerful books are and how powerful young people are. And that is the lever they're trying to pull to control and to stay in power themselves. And so I think it just shows us that like we have to continue to make sure that books get into the hands of kids, that all kids get to see themselves in books and know their true worth, because it has to be powerful or else people wouldn't be trying to stop it.
Absolutely. It's just so devastating and it hurts my heart. Like the kids, they can't see themselves in the books that they read just because I feel like it's out of power, but also like fear, because
Yeah.
I feel like kids have power and while adults try to disregard it, I feel like they're a bit afraid. So it just hurts me that kids can't discover like that there are people like them out there, that people have shared similar experiences. And it's just it like it makes me so mad and I want to channel all that anger to putting an end to book banning.
Yeah, I totally hear you. And you're doing so much, and you've been such a great spokesperson for the freedom to read. And that's so important. I mean,
Yeah.
really books can save lives. Like
Mhm.
if you read a book of somebody that's like you and you felt so alone, not feeling alone is it can really change the course of a person's life. So, yeah, we
Absolutely.
got to keep doing it.
Yeah, and I saw like a lot of like people who's just their books have nothing to do with diversity, just their last name was gay, like,
Oh,
and then
yes.
their books are being banned. They like people just search up specific terms, and if the author's name says it, doesn't even matter if it's the book title. The books are just challenged and banned and taken out of schools.
Yes. I mean, it says a lot about their side, right? Of like
Hmm.
what they're looking for and that they claim to be protecting children. Well, really,
Right.
that's not what's going on. And
Yeah, and I saw the Moms for Liberty Discord server was leaked, and it's just, I mean, it's so sad. Like everything that they say, I couldn't even continue reading it after a while. It's just like disheartening how like humans can just be so intent on taking away kids' freedom to read, all people's freedom to read.
yeah, it really it is so disheartening. And I think you're right to like stop reading because it's just can get so intense.
Hmm.
And I have to remind myself over and over again, almost daily, that they're really in the minority. They really
Right.
don't represent most people, for sure they don't represent kids, even though they say that they are trying, it's what they use as their reasoning. Because you talk to kids and they're like, yeah, it's fine. I mean, if I don't want to read a book, I just won't pick it up,
Yeah.
you know. And, I mean, kids are so open, they're so empathetic, and they really believe that diverse books should be out there. And most adults feel that way too. It's just a very vocal
Mhm.
minority that's
Absolutely.
using their influence to do bad things. So we have to like rally our majority, and every time
Right.
that happens, we usually tend to win, which is encouraging to me.
Yeah, it's really encouraging. And I hope that we'll continue to win all these fights. And my next question for you is about A Wish in the Dark. I'll just move the tray out so you can all
Oh
stand
yeah.
beside. Yeah.
Yes.
So I watched your book trailer of A Wish in the Dark, and one quote that really stood out to me. Well, I mean, I read the book as well, but like one thing that really stuck out to me was a quote that said, "A magical city where people suffer in the shadows." That's just so profound. And what is really sad about that is that it's also true in today's world, not a fantastical world. Like in grand cities, there are always people that are suffering, and they're not their some their stories aren't really brought to light.
Yeah.
So I guess my question for you is, how do you balance the magic and fantasy of A Wish in the Dark with the sorrow and pain that many of the characters feel?
Oh my goodness. That's such a great question. I mean, really, one thing that I love about fantasy so much is that you really cannot write about another world. You can't create a magical world without, in some way, commenting or criticizing or questioning something in our world. It's
Right.
just every fantasy does that because you're building a whole new world. So you're thinking about what's going on in ours. So that's what I mean. I was doing that very much. And the A Wish in the Dark, it's actually a twist on another novel.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, it's called Les Miserables,
Well, that
and
sounds
it's
like a good book.
yeah, it's a great book, and it's a musical. They made it into a
Oh,
musical, Les
cool.
Mis, which is I don't know if you like musicals, but
I love musicals, yeah.
oh my God. You have to listen to the music for Les Mis. It's like my favorite musical ever. It's so beautiful. And but that French novel, it takes place in France, it takes place in Paris, and the themes there are about like the city is in a revolution. It's about to undergo a revolution, and the people who have been oppressed are rising up to say
Yeah,
that they can't take it anymore. And so that really is like what sparked me to want to include that in A Wish in the Dark. But also because yes, it's going on today. We see it
yeah.
today, absolutely. It's an issue for sure in Thailand. There's just so much inequality there, and that's where the story kind of takes place. So it
Mhm.
felt impossible to tell the story without going there and making a comment on that.
Yeah. Wasn't Les Mis by like Victor Hugo or
Yes.
something? Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
that's right. And he wrote also Hunchback of Notre
Oh
Dame
yeah.
is another famous novel of his. And it was my favorite book in high school. So I wish I had a copy of it. It's 1,600 pages long, so it's like about that thick.
How do you write that much in one book? Like keep the story going.
Well, there's definitely like there's about 300 pages that you can skip.
Oh,
Like it's, it was 200 years ago. It's not like today where you have to worry about, oh, are people gonna get distracted or something? No one
yeah,
had anything to do but read books.
right.
But it's incredible. It's an amazing, amazing novel. And so that's, doing A Wish in the Dark. I just really wanted to recreate part
Mhm.
of what I was feeling when I read that book.
Yeah. Well, A Wish in the Dark certainly had a ton of emotion that it was just so good. And all of your books are. And kind of, you mentioned Bangkok, which is Thailand's capital and largest city. So I read on your website that you make regular trips to visit family there. And I also did a search online and I found out that Bangkok has many, many bookstores, including children's bookstores. So I'm curious, do you visit the bookstores and talk to the students about your stories when you visit? And do you happen to like be able to speak and read Thai script?
So the last time I went to Thailand, I did go to a school. I visited
Oh,
an international school, and so I don't read in Thai. I can't read the Thai language. I just never learned, and so whenever I go over there, I'm totally lost unless somebody's showing me around. But I did get to go to an international school, and so almost all the students at the school also speak English in
okay.
addition to like they speak so many languages, like they're from all over the world. But most of them are Thai. And so that was really special, just like getting to talk about the book and like all the little tidbits in the book that are about
Mm.
Thai culture that they really love to see and pick up on. And I remember I went to a kindergarten class and we read one of my books that's a counting book. It's a picture book called The Blunders. And we counted in English and we counted
Oh,
in Spanish and we counted in Thai, and it was so,
oh,
so sweet. It was really cool.
that,
Never done that before.
yeah, that's so cool. And now it's time, sadly, for the final question of the interview, the question I ask every person I've ever interviewed. If you could be or meet any literary character, it could be your favorite character in a book, or it could be your favorite author, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh, this is a very hard one for me.
Yeah,
And when I thought about this question, my first instinct, and I love so many books, so many
yeah.
authors, but my very first, the thing that popped up in my mind was Despero.
Oh, yeah.
From Kate DiCamillo's book Despero.
Yeah.
I don't know why that. I don't think that I'm really like him, but I think, you
He's
know,
like iconic, maybe?
yes, just iconic. And I think maybe in that moment that I was thinking about this question, I felt like maybe I needed to be brave about something. And so, yeah, I just think about the impact that this one, he's my favorite type of character, which is a small character, someone small and seemingly powerless, which in a mouse moving through the human world, you can't think of
Right.
anyone who would be more powerless than that, who ends up changing the whole world of the
Yeah.
story. And so I don't know. That was mine.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer. And I've actually, all your answers have been great. And I wish we had more time to learn about your writing journey. This has just been such a great, great interview. And everybody, you need to read Christina's books. They're the best out there. And whether you read her picture books, her middle grade novels, her graphic memoir, or any of her books, you are sure to walk away with a need to read every single one of Christina's books. You can also check out her website, as she mentioned, soontornvat.com. Her YouTube channel has a lot of interesting videos that are related to her books. They also have her book trailers. So check that out. And thank you so much for joining me, Christina.
E-Train, thank you so much.
Yeah. So everybody be sure to follow everything Christina's doing. When Christina writes a new book, it just makes the writing world a better place. And I also just want to give a quick shout out that it's extra special because like a special day called Giving Tuesday is coming up on November 28th, and it's all about giving joy and kindness. I feel like when you read Christina's books, when you read them, joy and like a love for reading is instilled in you. And so hopefully after this interview you feel inspired to pick up one of Christina's books. I know you're going to love them. Have a great day, everybody. Keep on reading, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.